So in the last video, we talked a little bit about the interface, and now we're ready to get going with our animation. Your screen probably looks exactly like this, hopefully, if you've opened everything up. Maybe will a little bit larger, depending on if you're following along and change the scale or not. So, great. If I hit the spacebar now, nothing happens because we've set no keyframes, we've made no animation. So to get started with animation, we need to look at two things. We need to look at the position of our playhead, and we need to look at the properties. So each layer has a set of properties. To find those properties, you want to click on that arrow to the left of that layer box, and then you'll see sometimes it'll be like that. You click that on transform, and you should see all of the properties from which you can animate. You've got its anchor point, which is that there. That's the pivot point from which something moves around or rotates around or scales around from that point. You've got its position. It's where it is on the screen. Scale. It's how big or small it is. Yeah. You've got its rotation. And importantly with rotation, you've got that 0 and then that degrees. That 0 is for a full rotation, so if I turn that 1 to 1, that's full 360 degrees, or you could just have it move just a little bit, or 3 times, you type the number 3, it's 3 full circles, so on and so forth. And then opacity, or transparency, at 100%, it's fully visible, at 0, it's completely invisible, 50%, it's halfway there. So, those are the sort of the properties you can animate here. These are the basic sort of things. Of course, there's lots of other effects. The program is called After Effects, but these are the basic sort of things we start off with when we're animating. And there's a lot of sort of stuff you can get just from this. So I'm going to move my playhead to 2 seconds, and I'd like to animate its position. Now, if I just wanted to see its position, I could hit the letter P on the keyboard, and that would just show me its position property. I could hit R for rotation, S for scale, and T for transparency, which is a synonym for opacity. So I could call up those things at a time. So let's say I've got 15 different layers and I want to just see all of their transparencies. I can just hit T, select all of them and hit T, and then I can see that all sort of like in that little tiny area I've got to work with there. But I'm going to do P for position. But if you want to just go back to that, I'm just going to hit P again. It makes it go away. Here it is. It's under transform. There's position. To start a keyframe animation, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're at the point in time when you want it to be at that position. So I've got to start off. I'd like him at 2 seconds to be here. And let's say at the very beginning of the animation, I want him to be sort of down. So since he's already here, I'm going to start here as my first keyframe. To create a new keyframe, next to each one of these properties, you'll see a little stopwatch. That's supposed to be a stopwatch, by the way. If you click that little stopwatch, you'll get a little diamond here. You'll get a little indication that that's got a keyframe animation on it. Basically, this is the principle from which After Effects is based on. Everything in After Effects is about setting these keyframes and moving along in time. So what will happen is that when you start off doing this, you will set a keyframe. And a lot of people will make the mistake is that they'll just move it here and go, all right, well, that's where I want it to go. And then if they play it, they realize nothing happens because you've only got one keyframe. According to the computer, it's just this position at this point in time. You always need 2 points to have, to make a line, right? Same thing. You need 2 points to set an animation. So importantly, what you need to do, and this is sort of like the beginner mistake everybody makes, and it's okay, you want to make sure that you move this playhead to where you want it to go. So at this point in time, I'd like it to start where he's down. So if I drag him now, you'll notice that I've got this little dashed line, which is great. Importantly, to make a new keyframe, a lot of people will, when they first start off, is they'll go to this point in time, and to make a new keyframe, they'll go over here and they'll hit this little stopwatch again. And then they'll go, what happened? Where'd it go? You only click that stopwatch at the beginning. And then as you move your thing around and start moving things, it'll create those paths. I'm going to hit Command Z twice to undo. I think I just need to set so I'm going to set my position there. I'm going to go to 2 seconds and I'm going to move him here. It will automatically generate new keyframes for me for every time I'm in a new position. This is also a mistake a lot of beginners make. is that they'll move it along and they'll just start clicking and dragging and not paying attention to the fact that as I click and drag, it creates these little stopwatches, these little points in time, and they themselves become the animation. And you go, well, that is not what I wanted at all. That's fine. All of these things you can select and press delete or Command Z to get rid of. So keep in mind, it automatically creates new keyframes as long as you're in a different point in time, and you only press this at the beginning unless you want to get rid of all the keyframes on the timeline. So and you'll notice that this little thing here, this is called your motion path. It's the path at which the motion of that animation takes. If you don't see that, that's because this is not activated, so make sure that it's blue and on. And you can, of course, grab the handle for the other point in time. You can adjust these at any time. That will change where it is. You'll notice that on this little dotted line there's a little circle there. If you click and drag that, that will make it a curve. And it just allows you to kind of set and adjust its position. So I would like that to be like that. And if I hit the space bar now, you should go from point A to point B. Excellent, that's what I want. Now you can always copy and paste keyframes. So if I like this keyframe, I'm going to hit Command C to copy because I'd like him to maybe go back down. I'm going to hit Command V to paste, and he goes back down. So my animation is he comes in, he sticks his head up, hello, and then he goes back down. All right, that's kind of what I want, but I want him to stand still. So and at any time too, you can move these keyframes. Like I would like this at 4 seconds. So let's say between, I don't know, maybe he comes in at 1.5 seconds. So I can adjust the timing of things too. So if I want this faster, I can move the keyframes closer together. So now it's faster here. And if I want it slower, I can move the keyframes further apart. Now, if I want him to stay in some place, I need to copy this keyframe for the amount of time I want him to stay. So I'm going to copy that one by hitting Command C to copy. Move my playhead to where I want it to be. Make sure that I'm still on this layer. It's a lighter shade of purple. If you notice, it's kind of grayed out there. This is the layer that's active. I'm going to hit Command V to paste. So now, between these two, he should hold. But you notice how he's kind of bobbing around. Not what I want. Not ideal. It's a bit creepy. What I need to do is I need to adjust what's called keyframe interpolation. Blah, I know, long word. Basically, it's how After Effects reads keyframes. So if I right-click on my keyframe here, I can go into keyframe or say toggle hold keyframe. That will hold that from that point. So now it's going to get to there. He's going to pop up. He's going to chill out and not bob around. And then he's going to go away. Another part of keyframe interpolation is that between these 2 points now, After Effects is a computer. And what do computers do? They figure out things perfectly. But movement in animation is never perfect. That's an important thing to remember. Movement in animation is never perfect. Things ease in and ease out. What does that mean? So think of yourself like in a car. Your car doesn't automatically go from 0 to 60 miles an hour. That would be crazy, right? It doesn't do it perfectly either. It slowly gets up to 60 miles an hour, depending on the type of car you have, yeah? If you got like a Maserati, it's a lot quicker than a Ford Fiesta. So if you've got and that's that interpolation. That's how quickly it gets up to speed. And then easing out is how quickly it breaks. So if you want to brake really quick, it'll do it just perfectly like that. Or if you want to slowly, gradually things, you want to add what's called an ease out. So I'm going to right click in on this and I'm going to say keyframe assistant, ease in. And I'm going to do this one, keyframe assistant, ease out. It's a very subtle thing but little things like that make animation more solid, more believable, more realistic. So I'd like you guys to just animate Shakespeare and see how that goes.